Good evening, friends. This session is dedicated to class 9, and we are going to do poem number 10, A Slumber Did My Spirit Chill by William Wordsworth. Well, friends, you would like to ask, what is this poem about? Well, A Slumber Did My Spirit Chill, written by William Wordsworth, is all about death, separation, pain, and and all the sufferings in human life. Actually, the poet has highlighted the pain and suffering of a human being when one's beloved is no more in this world. A Slumber Did My Spirit Chill is one of the Wordsworth Lucy poems, which focuses primarily on the death of a young woman named Lucy, though the identity of the woman remains a mystery in this poem. The poem is of two four-line stanzas, and yet a great deal happens in this narrow space. The poet realizes that the young woman has died, and the only bad thing that has happened in this world is her death. In the first stanza, the poet says that he had not been affected by the realities of life, but he is quickly caught a harsh lessons which his spirit dies. The choice to hide the death between the two stanzas is quite interesting, as it seems to imply that the poet is unable to verbalize the pain that goes along with the sudden loss. On the other hand, the poem may be less about the poet's innocence than about his belief in the young woman's power. Indeed, he seems to have built her up in the mind into the goddess, untouched by age and mortality. Now, some question answers. The very first question that can be asked in the exam is, slumber did my spirit chill, says the poet. That is a deep sleep closed of his soul or mind. How does the poet react to his loved one's death? Does he feel bitter grief, or does he feel a great peace? Well, the poet is totally shattered with the death of his beloved. The, the death of the woman, his loved one, is a great shock to him. He says all along and believes that no harm would come to her, but the fact is that he is very much affected by the tragedy. The tragedy struck on his beloved, and he could probably not handle the grief and is not at peace at all. Second question, the passing of time will no longer affect her, says the poet. Which line of the poem says this? He is referring to his grief that she would not age or be affected by time. The lines of the poem that mentions that, though the poet with regard to his loved one is, she seemed a thing that could not feel the touch of earthly years. Here the death is only implied and not being ascertained. So the line is she seemed a thing that could not feel the touch of earthly years. Yes. Next question, that is question number 3. Just why has the poet referred as slumber? Why has it sealed his spirit? Slumber is synonymous of a deep sleep. What is the meaning of slumber? A long sleep or a deep sleep. And therefore, it is a state of unconsciousness when we are not aware of things going on around us. And hence, the slumber has sealed his spirit, because this time the slumber was not temporary, it has been permanent, and therefore it has completely blocked his spirit, his soul. And this is the last question. Why does the poet repeat, no motion has she now, no force, she neither hears nor sees? The poet William Wordsworth offers an airy description of the woman's current situation. She is blind and deaf, wholly incapable of talking in the world around her. This is particularly painful idea in a Wordsworth poem because he is generally focused on experiencing the senses. But now in this poem, the poet is trying to mention that his beloved is now completely buried along with the rocks and stones, and she has no sensation to realize the happening in the nature. She has become a part of the soil, the part of the rock, and thereby she has blended with nature. She has got blended with nature. So the theme of the poem is that the poet is undergoing the pain of the separation of his beloved, who is no more alive. She is dead, and perhaps he is trying to reflect his feelings in this poem by saying that his beloved has gone into a long sleep. Thereby, she is not able to now realize the earthly pain. Perhaps she has been blended with nature, and thus she has become a part of the earth, particularly the rocks and the soil, and therefore she will neither have any effect or impact of the worldly happenings such as rain, shower, or any other activity. She has really been in long sleep, and thereby she has become a spiritual one. The two or three lines which are examples of poetic device. One is, a slumber did my spirit still, no motion has she now, no force. This is an example of alliteration. And one metaphor, she seemed a thing that could not feel, earth diurnal course. Earth's diurnal course is the example of metaphor. And repetition, no motion has now, no force. So no motion, no force, this is repetition. So there are three important poetic device. One is alliteration, a slumber did my spirit still, repetition of the alphabet sound S. And the second one is metaphor, she seemed a thing that could not feel, earth's diurnal course. And the third one is repetition, no motion has she now, no force. So these are the poetic device used in this poem. With that, we conclude this poem. Thank you. Have a nice day.